Your money is dying. Not tomorrow. Not in some distant crisis. Right now, while you work, while you save, while you sleep. And nobody told you the rules of the game changed 40 years ago. This is not about prices going up. This is about the ground shifting beneath your feet. About a mechanism built into the system that transfers wealth from your pocket to someone else. This balance sheet, silently, legally, permanently. I'm going to show you exactly how inflation destroys purchasing power across 5 historical breaking points. Weimar Germany 1921 to 1923. Hungary 1945 to 1946. Yugoslavia 1992 to 1994. Zimbabwe 2007 to 2009. And Venezuela 2016 to 2019. Not as history lessons, as pattern recognition. Because the mechanism is always the same. The timeline compresses, the currency dies, and everyone holding it loses everything. Then I will show you what is happening in your life right now with numbers from actual household budgets, wage data, and asset prices. Because the same pattern does not announce itself. It creeps. And by the time you see it, you're already 10 years behind. This is not about economic theory. This is about survival. Let me start with the mechanics, the part they do not teach you. Inflation is not caused by corporate greed, supply shocks, or bad weather. Those are variables that affect prices temporarily. Inflation is the sustained increase in the money supply relative to goods and services. When more currency chases the same amount of output, each unit of currency buys less. The currency itself loses value. Here is the mechanism. Governments spend money. When tax revenue covers spending, the system is balanced. When spending exceeds revenue, there is a deficit. Deficits must be financed. There are 3 ways to do this. Raise taxes, borrow money, or print money. Raising taxes is politically unpopular. Borrowing has limits. Lenders eventually stop lending when debt gets too high. That leaves printing. And printing is silent. Most people do not understand it. Most people do not see it happening. They just notice prices rising and assume it is someone else's fault. But here's what actually happens. When a central bank prints money, it does not just create currency and hand it to citizens. It buys government bonds. The government gets cash. The central bank gets bonds. The money supply expands, and every dollar already in circulation becomes worth slightly less. This is the transfer. You held $100. It could buy $100 worth of goods. The government prints $10 trillion. Your $100 still exists, but now there is more money in the system. Your $100 now buys $90 worth of goods. $10 of your purchasing power just evaporated. It did not go to you. It went to whoever received the newly printed money first. This is called the Cantillon Effect. Those closest to the source of new money benefit, those furthest from it lose. The government spends first, banks lend second, asset holders see prices rise third, workers and savers see their purchasing power decline last. By the time inflation shows up in your grocery bill, the wealth has already been transferred. Now let me show you what this looks like when the mechanism breaks, when printing accelerates beyond control and the currency enters freefall. Weimar Germany 1921 to 1923. In 1918, Germany lost World War I. The Treaty of Versailles imposed reparations, 132 billion gold marks. Germany did not have this money. The economy had been devastated. Industrial capacity was destroyed. Tax revenue collapsed. But the debt was real, and it had to be paid. The German government had a choice: default on the debt and face military occupation, or print money and pay it. They chose to print. The Reichsbank began creating marks. At first, the inflation was moderate. Prices rose 10% in 1920, 20% in 1921. People complained, but adjusted. Wages increased. Life continued. Then the acceleration began. In 1922, prices doubled, then doubled again. By January 1923, inflation hit 470%. By July, 30,000%. By October, 2 billion%. By November, 3 trillion%. The currency was collapsing in real time. Here's what this looked like on the ground. In 1918, a loaf of bread cost 1 mark. A worker earned about 100 marks per week. In November 1923, a loaf of bread cost 200 billion marks. A worker's weekly salary could not buy a single loaf by the end of the week. Workers demanded payment twice per day. They would get paid at lunch, run to the store, and buy whatever they could. Because by dinner, the money would be worthless. Restaurants changed prices hourly. A cup of coffee ordered at noon cost 5,000 marks. The same coffee ordered at 1 p.m. cost 8,000 marks. Menus were printed on chalkboards and erased constantly. Money lost value faster than it could be counted. The Reichsbank printed higher denominations: 1 million mark notes, 1 billion mark notes, 1 trillion mark notes. Children used stacks of bills as building blocks. People burned money for heat because it was cheaper than buying firewood. Wallpaper cost more than currency. The physical paper had more value than the number printed on it. But here's the real damage. Savings were obliterated. If you had 50,000 marks in 1918, you were middle class, comfortable, secure. By 1923, 50,000 marks could not buy a postage stamp. Decades of savings, gone. People who had worked their entire lives and saved diligently were reduced to poverty overnight. Not because they made bad decisions, because the currency died. Pensioners starved. Fixed incomes became worthless. The government could not adjust pensions fast enough. An elderly German receiving 500 marks per month in 1922 could live modestly. By mid-1923, 500 marks could not buy one meal. Thousands of elderly Germans starved to death. Not from famine, from inflation. The social fabric disintegrated. Trust collapsed. People stopped working because wages were meaningless. Farmers stopped selling food for currency and demanded barter. The economy reverted to primitive exchange. Germany, one of the most advanced industrial nations in Europe, was reduced to trading goods like a medieval village. By November 1923, the mark was dead. $1 equaled 4.2 trillion marks. The government introduced a new currency, the Rentenmark, backed by land. One Rentenmark equaled 1 trillion old marks. They reset the system. But the damage was permanent. The middle class was destroyed. Faith in institutions evaporated. And 10 years later, a desperate and angry population elected Adolf Hitler. Hyperinflation did not just destroy wealth. It destroyed the society. Hungary, 1945 to 1946. If you think Weimar was extreme, Hungary holds the record for the worst hyperinflation in recorded history. After World War II, Hungary's economy was obliterated. 80% of industrial capacity destroyed. The government needed to rebuild. But there was no money, no tax base, no functioning economy. So they printed. In July 1945, inflation was moderate. By January 1946, prices were doubling every 15 days. By June 1946, prices were doubling every 15 hours. At the peak, inflation reached 41 quadrillion % per month. This is not a typo, 41,000 trillion %. The Hungarian pengo became the most worthless currency in history. The government printed a 100 quintillion pengo note, 100 million trillion, the largest denomination ever issued. It could not buy a loaf of bread. Workers were paid 3 times per day. Stores stopped accepting currency entirely. Only gold, food, or foreign currency. The economy collapsed. People stopped going to work. There was no point. By the time you received your paycheck, it was worthless. Hungary reverted to barter, a modern European nation trading chickens for shoes. The Hungarian government introduced a new currency in August 1946, the forint. Exchange rate was 400 octillion pengo to 1 forint. 4 followed by 29 zeros. They wiped out the old currency and started over. Every saver lost everything. Every pension became worthless. An entire nation's wealth was erased in 13 months. Yugoslavia, 1992 to 1994. The Yugoslav dinar collapsed during the breakup of Yugoslavia. The government was fighting multiple wars. Serbia, Croatia, Bosnia. Military spending exploded. Tax revenue collapsed. The government printed money to fund the wars. In 1992, inflation was 20,000% annually. High, but the economy still functioned. By 1993, inflation hit 1 quadrillion % annually. The dinar lost value so fast that prices changed during transactions. You would agree on a price, walk to the cash register, and the price would be higher by the time you paid. The National Bank of Yugoslavia printed 500 billion dinar notes, then 500 trillion dinar notes. The denominations became absurd. People carried money in bags, not because they were rich, because it took bags full of bills to buy groceries. By 1994, the dinar was dead. The government introduced a new dinar at an exchange rate of 1 new dinar to 1 billion old dinars. Then 6 months later, they introduced another new dinar. Exchange rate, 1 to 1 billion again. They reset the currency twice in 1 year. Both times, savers lost everything. Zimbabwe, 2007 to 2009. In 2000, Zimbabwe was the breadbasket of Africa, major exporter of tobacco, food, minerals. Then President Robert Mugabe seized commercial farms and redistributed them to political supporters. The supporters could not farm. Agricultural production collapsed, exports stopped, government revenue fell. But Mugabe did not cut spending. He increased it. He fought wars. He paid the military. He funded his party. And when revenue fell short, he ordered the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe to print money. In 2007, inflation hit 66,000%. By 2008, it reached 79 billion %. Prices doubled every 24 hours. Workers were paid twice per day. They ran to the store immediately because the money would be worthless by evening. The Reserve Bank printed a 100 trillion Zimbabwean dollar note, the largest denomination ever printed. When issued, it could buy 3 eggs. 1 week later, it could buy nothing. Stores stopped accepting Zimbabwean dollars, only US dollars, South African rand, or barter. The economy collapsed. Unemployment hit 94%, not because there were no jobs, because there was no point in working. Your paycheck was worthless. People grew food in their yards. They traded goods directly. Zimbabwe, a modern nation, with universities, hospitals, and infrastructure, was reduced to subsistence living. By 2009, the Zimbabwean dollar was abandoned. The country adopted the US dollar. Zimbabwe no longer has its own currency. They destroyed it completely. And every saver, every pensioner, every person who had worked and saved for decades lost everything. Venezuela, 2016 to 2019. Venezuela has the largest proven oil reserves in the world, 300 billion barrels. Should be one of the richest countries on earth. But in 2013, oil prices fell from $100 per barrel to $30. Government revenue collapsed, but spending did not stop. Free housing, free food, subsidized gasoline, government jobs for millions. When revenue fell, the government printed money. In 2016, inflation hit 800%. In 2017, 1,000%. In 2018, 65,000%. In 2019, 200,000%. 4 years of hyperinflation. By 2018, the bolivar was worthless. A cup of coffee cost 2 million bolivars. A dozen eggs cost 6 million. Workers were paid in stacks of bills that filled backpacks. They went to the store immediately because the money lost half its value overnight. The average Venezuelan lost 24 pounds between 2016 and 2019. Not from exercise, from starvation. There was not enough food. Not because Venezuela could not produce food. Because farmers stopped selling for bolivars. The currency had no value. Inflation destroyed the economy so completely that people in an oil-rich nation were eating from garbage cans. By 2019, Venezuela abandoned the bolivar for daily use. Everyone transacts in US dollars now. The currency still exists officially, but nobody accepts it. 5 examples. 5 countries, 5 timelines. Same pattern. Government spending exceeds revenue. Deficit grows. Money is printed. Inflation begins. Inflation accelerates. Currency dies. Savings wiped out. Pensions worthless. Society collapses. The pattern does not change, only the speed. Now let me bring this to your life. You do not think you are in Weimar Germany. You do not think your currency is dying. You think inflation is just higher prices. Annoying, but manageable. Let me show you what has already happened. In 2000, the median home price in the United States was $165,000. In 2024, it is $417,000. That is a 153% increase in 24 years. But here is the critical part. The median household income in 2000 was $42,000. In 2024, it is $78,000. That is an 86% increase. Your income went up 86%. Home prices went up 153%. You fell behind by 67%. In 2000, the median home cost 3.9 times the median annual income. In 2024, the median home costs 5.3 times the median annual income. Housing became 36% less affordable in real terms. Not because houses got better, because the currency lost value. Let me show you groceries. In 2000, a gallon of milk cost $2.79. In 2024, $4.12. Ground beef was $1.63 per pound, now $4.42. Eggs were 91 cents per dozen, now $2.53. Bread was 99 cents per loaf, now $2.18. Your grocery bill went up roughly 80 to 150%, depending on the item. Your income went up 86%. You are falling behind on basic food. Now, let me show you what this looks like in your monthly budget. In 2000, the average American household spent $4,700 per month. Rent or mortgage, food, transportation, healthcare, utilities. In 2024, the average household spends $7,200 per month. That is a 53% increase. But the median household income went up 86%. So you should be ahead, right? No, because the 86% income increase is nominal. After taxes, after healthcare costs, after transportation, the real increase in disposable income is much smaller, and it is being eaten by the 53% increase in monthly expenses. Here's the result. In 2000, 63% of Americans had savings. In 2024, 36% have savings. In 2000, 49% of Americans lived paycheck to paycheck. In 2024, 64% live paycheck to paycheck. You are working the same hours. You are earning nominally more, but you are poorer. This is inflation, not the number they report, the real inflation, the kind that shows up in your bank account. Now let me show you where this goes if nothing changes. The U.S. national debt is $36 trillion. The deficit in 2024 was $2 trillion. The government spent $2 trillion more than it collected in taxes. That deficit must be financed. And it is financed by the Federal Reserve buying treasury bonds, which means printing money. The M2 money supply, which measures currency in circulation, has increased from $4.6 trillion in 2000 to $21 trillion in 2024. That is a 356% increase in 24 years. The amount of dollars in existence has more than quadrupled. And every new dollar makes your existing dollars worth less. Here's what this means for your future. If inflation continues at 5 to 7% annually, which is below the actual rate most households are experiencing, your purchasing power will be cut in half in 10 years. The $7,200 per month you spend now will feel like $14,000 per month by 2034, but your income will not double. If you have $100,000 in savings today, and you keep it in a savings account earning 3% interest, it will be worth $56,000 in purchasing power in 10 years. You will lose 44% of your wealth, not from bad investments, from holding cash. This is the mechanism. You work, you save. The government prints. Your savings lose value. The wealth is transferred to whoever receives the newly printed money first. Banks, asset holders, large corporations, the government itself. You're at the end of the line. By the time the new money reaches you through wages, prices have already risen. You are always catching up. You never catch up. So what do? You cannot stop the government from printing. You cannot stop inflation, but you can protect yourself. Move your wealth out of currency and into assets that hold value when currency loses value. Real estate, stocks and companies with pricing power, commodities, gold, energy, anything that cannot be printed. Understand this. Inflation is not temporary. The debt is too large. The deficits are too high. The government cannot stop printing without collapsing the system. So they will keep printing. And that means sustained inflation for the next decade, 5 to 8% annually. Your purchasing power will be cut in half by 2034, unless you take action. Do not save in cash. Do not hold bonds yielding 3% when inflation is 7%. Do not wait for things to go back to normal. Normal is not coming back. This is the new equilibrium. Currency devaluation. Asset inflation. Purchasing power decline. The pattern is played out 5 times. Germany, Hungary, Yugoslavia, Zimbabwe, Venezuela, different countries, different decades, same mechanism. Government spending exceeds revenue. Money is printed. Currency dies. Savings wiped out. And now the pattern is playing out again, slower, more controlled, but unmistakable. You have the information. You understand the mechanism. The choice is yours. Adjust or lose. There is no third option. This is not about fear. This is about pattern recognition. 5 historical examples. 1 current reality. Same mechanism. You have been warned.